Snatch back your brain, zombie. Snatch it back and hold it.
What's going on, Low-Techs? It's me, Mystery, back with another video, another short form video. This is the continuation. This is the part 2 of the credit card little mini series, little thing that I'm doing to determine whether or not you should get a credit card or not. Like I said in the last video, that's not up for me to decide for you. That's up to you to decide for yourself whether or not you want to have a credit card. Last episode or last video, I outlined the 2 different types of credit cards that you have, your store card and your traditional credit card. Benefits, pros, cons with both. Also linked to a really good Forbes article that had a lot more detailed information than what I was providing there, because I don't really want to do hour-long episodes on each of these. I mean, you could easily do an hour-long episode, especially on interest, just because it's insane, all the different things that you have when it comes to interest. I'm going to hit you with some statistics right off the get here, and that's going to be kind of like to give you kind of an understanding as to the pockets of these credit card companies and how they're not hurting their main sources of income, stuff like that. Things that you need to consider. Well, not you need to consider is kind of strong. I don't like people taking advantage of people, right? And credit card companies, to me, they can take full advantage of people. Some are very open and honest about their setups and stuff like that, and they leave everything up for you to determine for yourself. Others, not so much. Others are kind of like, yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. Just sign right there. Okay, thank you for your life now. Bit dramatic, but you know. So I found an interesting article. It's a blog post by a gentleman named Bill No Pay Frey, which I found to be hilarious. He wrote this for debt.org, which I will have a link to this article in the description. A lot of what I'm going to go over here, the math examples that I'm going to go over here are pulled from this article. So if you want to see the actual equations laid out, he's got it right there. It's bullet pointed. It's really nice. So yeah, let's jump into that. So first thing to understand are interest rates, right? An interest rate it's the economic fuel, and this is ripped exactly from this article. It says, interest rates are the economic fuel that make credit card companies so profitable. It allows them to almost casually extend loans every day to 189 million Americans who own at least one card. So that's, just put that number out there. These companies, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, have enough money, have enough money that they can casually extend loans, $500, $20,000, $500 to $20,000 to a lot more, to 189 million Americans who own at least one credit card. Isn't that insane? What is interest when it comes to a credit card? You've got multiple forms of interest, right? So the main interest rates, there are 3 main types of interest rates when it comes to, or interest when it comes to credit cards. You have your variable, your fixed, and your promotional rate. So realistically, this guy says it here too, and he's dead on the money. That's all really just one, right? Because even a fixed isn't really fixed, and we'll go into it. So to define a variable rate, right? A variable rate is something that, let's see, it's interest charged based on benchmarks such as the prime interest rate on U.S. Treasury bills, the Federal Reserve discount rate, or other indexes. The card company takes that rate and adds several percentage points margin to come up with the rate that it will charge you, right? So all these factors go in. When you send your information off to the credit card company, say, hey, I'd like a credit card, they take you and they throw you against, figuratively, they throw you against prime rates that are currently set by the Treasury. Oh, I'm like pointing way off the screen here. So they do that to determine, okay, what are we going to charge you with a variable interest rate? When rates are low, as they have been, this is this article, this is kind of the way to go. So when prime rates are low, it's a good time to get a credit card because you're going to get a lower rate. Even if you got rougher credit, you're going to get a lower rate, which may be the thing that propels you forward and actually allows you to get one, depending on your credit worthiness, right? An example is the summer of 2018, where interest was 4.75 percentage points. The card issuer adds a margin of 10 to 12 points for customers with good credit to come up with an APR of about 14.75 to 16.75 percentage points. That's still pretty high for me, but that's a good credit. The margin is much higher, 23 to 26 points for those with bad credit, who will pay around 27.75 to 30.75 percentage points. That's what he's got here. And yeah, I mean, there's no secret, right? You have bad credit, you're going to pay more. And, so what is that, right? So now that we know that is, and interest is, interest is as it says it is, right? Like it is an additional percentage, an additional amount of money that's going to be charged on what you already have in your account, right? It could either increase or decrease based on the index which they are built. In some cases, there's a cap on how high or low variable interest rates can go, but card companies do not have to give you notice. And I think that's a key thing to point out here, that when you have a variable rate or fixed rate or any kind of rate, your card company is not required to let you know when that rate changes. So you may get used to having a stable bill, but at the same time, that could be flipped upside down. You could have higher, lower, So you see that a lot with cell phone companies. I think that is a good example of that. Like, you'll probably notice that your cell phone bill is never going to be exactly the same all the time, right? Because rates change and things move up and down. Now, some will argue and have probably won this argument with cell phone companies to allow them to get out from paying anything and losing a potentially big bill, but I wouldn't count on that. Those are exceptions to the rule. So, but I think another thing to keep in mind with that is when you have bad credit or rougher credit and your interest rates are around 27% to 30%, you can't miss a payment, right? If you miss a payment, even one late payment, but that's, it could affect you. Now, another thing to specify, and he touches on it here, but it's something that's not really widely expressed, is that you could be late on your mortgage payment. You could be late on anything that's attached to your credit, right? Anything that you're attached to your credit, if you're late on it, could potentially increase your rate with your credit cards too, because it's all variable. It all rises and falls with interest rates and your credit worthiness. So you may be perfectly fine and then suddenly hit a hard time and you've got to turn around and pay this late or that late, or for some reason, it slipped your mind and now your credit took a hit because of this. Your bill's going up. And that's a dangerous thing when it comes to interest. So keep an eye on that. Bear in mind that the responsibility is not just with the credit card. The responsibility is all over the place when it comes to your finances, which is why it's good to keep a budget and know what you have at all times, know what you want to spend. Think about it. Don't spontaneously purchase items. You don't go to the grocery store hungry because then you buy a bunch of crazy stuff. You go to the grocery store after you've already eaten and you don't really want to be around food. So you pull out your meal plan that it took you forever to make because you hate meal planning. This is me. And then you've got a nice little outline of it. Then you take it home and then you wait 3 days and finally get things done. And that just got too personal. But anyway, another type of interest is fixed interest rates. Now, fixed interest rates is exactly what it is. It is a fixed interest rate that doesn't change for a specified period of time, usually 45 days or 60 days or 9 months. Like it's all determined on what is on the paperwork, right? Also, it forces the cardholder to have a 45-day notice whenever the issuer decides to change the rate. In which case, then you can either accept the change or decide not to use the card at the newer rate. So it's kind of nice because you can, let's say the interest, you get it for 13%. And then you get a notice, a 45-day notice that says, hey, your interest rate is going up and you're now looking at 18%. No, you don't want to spend that. You don't. So you're like, okay, well, go ahead and put a pause on that card so it doesn't work against you, or just don't use the card, put it in the freezer, do whatever it is, remove it from your quick pay options and stuff like that. That way you don't have to worry about getting hit with a higher payback with that higher interest rate. Fixed rates are generally higher than variable rates, with the consumer paying a premium for the card's relative stability. So yeah, that's like a luxury. It's kind of like a thing that where you've attained a certain level of credit worthiness to where you're allowed to apply and gain a fixed rate credit card. But it's still kind of a slap in your face because even though you've worked hard to get yourself to that position where you can have that, they still want to punish you for that because you have that. It's kind of like vacation time in America. So yeah, you get, 1, 2, 3 to 4 weeks paid vacation, but don't use it. You need to do your job. That's a little jab. That's personal. But, if you work in America, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you even get vacation time. But so fixed rate card companies can also charge interest rates, and they've got it listed here. If you're 60 days late with your payment, so that could cause your change in your rate. Now, if you are 60 days late on your credit card payment, you need to reach out to your credit card holder or your credit card issuer to determine something to help you work with it, right? Especially after the human malware that we just had, a lot of companies will work with you on things. I had Capital One work with me when I lost my job, and that was at the beginning of the pandemic because no money, no pay, right? So you complete a debt management program. So say you found yourself in a situation where you're like, okay, I'm able to consolidate, pay down, and get rid of a huge portion of my debt. Credit card company might not like that and be like, hey, yo, we signed you up with this. Now you're this. We don't like that. We're changing your rate. Still got to give you a 45-day notice, but we're changing your rate. You had a promotional fixed rate that has ended. That's the more common one, right? So you have a 6-month fixed rate of this. That's a really common one that you'll see. And then after that, it switches over to a VIR, or variable interest rate, right? So that's, like I said, that's the more common one that you'll see. That's how they get a lot of people in. Only pay this for 60 days and then based on that, but don't worry because you'll be able to pay off everything and it's not that much of a difference. And if you show that you can pay it well, you'll be fine, right? That's the lie. That's the spin. So that's kind of, the fixed rate is stable and that's the advantage of it, but it's not really a fixed rate because it can change. So again, not really a fixed, like it says fixed, but is different. The next particular type of interest that you have on a credit card is your promotional interest rate. And those are usually offered for a specific time. And it's like, for 60 days, 9 months, 12-month period, varies based on what it is. Sometimes you'll get like a 0% interest for the first 18 months, or not 18 months, the first 8 months of you having the card, or 6 months or something like that, or pay nothing in interest for 12 months and things like that. Those are all common things. But that interest rate kicks in and that's going to be a change. You're used to having no interest for that promotional and you turn around and you didn't read the fine print. And then once the interest rate kicks in, you're at a 20+% interest rate. Your bills are going to start changing. Things are going to be different at that point in time. You'll have to consider whether or not you still want that card. I think it goes without saying, and he touched on it here in this particular article as well. Promotional rates, don't be sold by promotionals. Always look at the fine details. Promotional rates can be dangerous, man. That can be dangerous, like the balloon loans and stuff like that back in the 2008s with the housing market. Oh, you'll get a promotion. It'll be fine. You'll be, no. I think another thing to discuss as well is those are the 3 main types of interest. However, you can have different versions of that same interest on various things. Cash advances. A lot of people don't really know that A, you can get a cash advance from a credit card. B, you're going to pay an interest premium on that cash advance, right? So A lot of times cash advances have a flat fee or a percentage that could be added, putting on additional convenience to get your money. You know, they add a different, like, oh, okay, well, there's a $5 charge per $100 on a cash advance or something like that, right? Interest on a cash advance is immediate. It's not something that, you know, you could get a fixed rate for this, or you could have a promotional period where you don't have any interest payments for 6 months, 9 months, a year, but you decide you're going to go ahead and withdraw. An example here is, say, you get a 5% interest on all cash advances. So let's say 5% on a $100 withdrawal, right? But that interest rate is generally higher than the standard purchase rate. So you're still going to end up paying more for that cash advance. Bottom line, don't advance from a credit card. Don't advance. You can, but just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? Balance transfers. Sometimes you get an additional interest rate or an additional charge for balance transfers. So say you're trying to consolidate your debt. You're trying to get out from underneath the debt, you know, true currency of America being the debt, and get things down to one card, move things around. So you decide, okay, I'm going to transfer the balance over here. Well, that card company's like, whoa, I don't really like you doing that. I can't stop you from doing that, but I'm going to make it painful for you to do it. And I'm going to charge you an additional 1 to 5% off the total amount being transferred, right? Not just overall, but off the total amount. So say you have $40,000 on your credit card debt, 1 to 5% of the total amount transferred could be kind of steep, right? And it may be money that you don't necessarily have, and that could cause a lot of rates. Now, that being said, a lot of companies that offer you or encourage you to transfer balances over and stuff like that generally have something to kind of help counteract that, but don't always look into that, or not looking at it, don't always count on that, right? Another thing to remember about interest rates with credit cards is that rewards, and he's got it here, reward cards have higher interest rates. So you could get a standard stock simple Capital One card, or Visa, just a standard Visa that's just like a beginner card, right? And it has no real bonus on it. You might get some form of cash back over purchases over the course of like a year. It might have some little thing on there, but if you're getting like air miles or cash back in large percentages and stuff like that, then you're likely going to have a higher rate on your credit card, because they need to make it worth their while too. Also, they can, right? So you're looking at 13 to 23 is what he's got here, which is pretty interesting. All that is subject to your credit worthiness too. If you are just barely at the point where you can qualify for a rewards card, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't go for that rewards card. Maybe you hold off, right? Let's take a look at APR, right? APR is your annual percentage rate, right? Sorry, I'm brain freeze there. Annual percentage rate. Now, in the article that I have here, he's got it linked. So we're going to go over the steps that he has here listed to how to approach it, right? So you got your variable, your fixed, you've got your promotional, all of that. There's also an APR, and there could be APRs on different things too. So an APR you pay on your credit card as part of your monthly bill. It's calculated on a daily basis, so your APR must be converted to a daily rate. The math equation for that annual percentage rate, or in parentheses APR, so it's parentheses APR divided by 365, which is the number of days in a year. Let's say your APR is 16%. So we go 0.16, next to 0.16. So the calculation would be 0.16. Oh my gosh. So let's say your APR is 16%. That'll be 0.16 times your APR, it's in parentheses, divided by 365. That gives you a daily periodic rate of 0.00044. And I'll have this article linked so you can go over it. So you calculate your daily average balance and the math on that total billing amount divided by the number of days in the billing cycle. To figure that out, look back at your statements. Start with the unpaid balance, the amount of money carried over from previous month statements. So if you're just paying the minimum payment, you know what that additional carryover is. You start with the unpaid, add up each debt entry and divide it by the number of days in your credit card's billing period. That's your average daily balance, right? So that's how you determine that portion of that equation. Multiply your daily periodic rate by the average daily balance, right? So the math on this is daily period rate times X average daily balance. Let's say your average daily balance was 1200, so we go 0.00044 daily periodic rate times 1200, which is your average daily balance, and that equals to 53 cents, 0.53. So now you multiply by the number of days in your billing cycle, and if that's a 30-day billing cycle, that's 53 cents multiplied by 30, and it equals $15.90. So you'll be charged $15.90 in interest for this billing cycle, right? So you can easily determine based on what you have. Well, I guess easy is a relative term on that. If you're not a math major or something like that, like looking at this, I'm not the best person at math. I mean, if you lay a formula out for me, I can run that formula, I can work it most of the time, unless it's like extreme. But still, that's a good way to determine what it is. And that's all in there, and I'll show that to you. And that's your APR. So let's go ahead and calculate your APR. Now, this article here has a nice step-by-step approach. And just because I can't trust that you're going to go to this website and read this for yourself, I'm going to read this little 4-part section here to you pretty much word for word because it's actually really important. I think Bill No Pay Frey did a really good job with this. So it starts off with the steps to calculate your credit card interest, right? So the first one is to look up the APR on your credit card. The interest rate, known as the APR, you pay on your credit card as part of your monthly bill. It is calculated on a daily basis, so your APR must be converted to a daily rate. The math equation for this annual percentage rate, or APR, is parentheses APR divided by 365, which is the number of days in the year. So let's say your APR is 16%. Okay, so we go 0.16 times your APR divided by 365. And that gives us a daily periodic rate of 0.00044. So now we know how to do that. Calculate your average daily balance. Interest is assessed on your average daily balance. Oh, hold on. Calculate your average daily balance. Interest is assessed on your average daily balance. No secret there, right? The math on that is total billing amount divided by number of days in the billing cycle. To figure that out, look back at your statement, start with the unpaid balance, which is the amount of money carried over from the previous month's statement, add up each debt entry and divide it by the number of days in your credit card's billing period. So you can find all that information out on your statements as well. That's the average daily balance. So you want to multiply your daily periodic rate by the average daily balance. The math on this is one is daily periodic rate times average daily balance. Let's say your average daily balance was $1,200. So we go 0.00044, which is the daily periodic rate, times 1,200, which is your average daily balance, and that equals 0.53 or 53 cents. Multiply the number of days in your billing cycle, which is normally a 30-day billing cycle, and that is going to be 53 cents multiplied by 30, and it equals $15.90. So you'll be charged $15.90 in interest for this billing cycle. Now, understand that interest is its own thing. So that is in addition to your monthly payment, you're getting charged an additional $15.90. So that's going to be on there. So if you look at your total bill and you have $600, it's going to be $615.90 with that $15.90 being interest. It's always going to be there. And that's at a pretty decent rate. So that is the equation on how to determine that, right? And that's at a 16%, which is pretty standard for most people with fairly decent credit nowadays anyway. And by say fairly decent, I don't mean like 730 plus, right? I'm talking like every average person that's got a car payment, got a home mortgage payment, stuff like that. So, yeah, we've already gone over so this This video is getting a little bit longer, but we're talking more nuts and bolts when it comes to these things. So, all this stuff here, there's a whole lot, like, there's some people have ways that they'll try to tell you how to avoid interest rates and stuff like that, and some people bounce around on what it is. Unfortunately, there's no real way to avoid interest rates, right? If you're going to get a credit card, you're going to have to be okay with paying more. It's just like if you buy a car. They always say that if you buy a car and you pay it off with the, if you pay the actual bill amount every month for the entire length of your loan, you're paying your car over and then some. Sometimes some people say based on your interest rates that you are going to be paying your car back 2 times, right? Because of the interest. Some factors that you can do to lower your interest rates is really just a matter of paying, be aggressive with on-time payments. And what I mean by that is, like, if your credit report or your thing shows that you make timely payments on time, pay more. Pay down as much as you can. I actually got that information because there for a while I was having a hard time with my first car because I was making my monthly payments and I wasn't really making a whole lot. It was an impulse buy car, and one of those prime examples of just because you can doesn't mean you should. I qualified for a loan for a little sports car. But what I didn't realize is that I qualified for the loan, yes. So I had a $460 monthly payment, which is insane to me. That's insane to me. Not to mention, I now had a rank 20 out of a 21 scale insurance rating car because it was a sports car, turbocharged, little front wheel drive Mitsubishi Eclipse GST, right? So I was paying out the wazoo for full coverage because when you have a car loan, you have to have full coverage. So that right there was like $100+ a month. And mind you, I was working fast food. I was working at a call center. I was working at, I think, like Alliance Data or something like that at the time, which does credit card authorizations for like limited brands, or did. I don't know if they still do. So I didn't really make a whole lot of money at that point in time. But all my money was going towards that particular option, rent and all these things like that. So I was stuck. But yeah, be aggressive with your payments, pay down as much as you can, as much as you can without putting yourself in harm's way. And companies they'll encourage you. They'll give you a lower rate. They may even try to tack on more actual borrowing amounts too. When it comes to increasing your limit, I would highly recommend to hold off on that. If you're at a point where, like, you can comfortably pay off what you have, if it comes down to it, don't go up unless you're good with your bills. Use your free resources to check your credit report, find out what's going on, dispute anything that comes through. Like, these are all different ways to drop your interest rates. I mean, basically dropping your interest rates is just a matter of you being diligent with your finances, right? So that helps, things like that. Some used to be that and it may still be in some cases, but it used to be that if you were with a company for a long time, then you would be able to get rewarded for that, right? I don't really know if that's still a thing nowadays or not, but yeah. So that's the long and short of interest. I hope I didn't lose you on that. This video is a little bit longer. I think we're coming up on 35 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it there. There's a really good equation in this article on other ways to decrease your debt. When you pay more than one a month, it gives a really good example of how much you can, like, what the benefit and how it rewards you and stuff like that. So, all right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this particular episode. It is, like I said, it's more of a nuts and bolts. It's more of a fine detail on it. If you're new to credit cards, hopefully this helped you out a lot. If you're someone who's experienced with credit cards and you feel that I've made an error, or that you have a different way of explaining things, or you have a way that works for you to do things with interest rates, or you have any experience that you have that you would be willing to share, please leave in the comments. What you share might help somebody else make a decision. You may have more experience with credit cards, like I said. I mean, we want to help people out, right? The goal of this is to make sure people know what they're getting themselves into. So, all right. Companies try to flatline you. I say this every episode, and even on these episodes. And while credit card companies don't necessarily come out and say, we're going to destroy you financially, they definitely do give you the tools to self destruct, right? Don't let them flatline you. Don't let them do it. Know what you're getting yourself into. And yeah, be safe.
Snatch back your brain, zombie. Snatch it back and hold it.